You're watching BBC One. Coming up at 10:35, Match of the Day with Gary Lineker. Can Southampton secure the Premier League title? But before that, it's over to Wembley Stadium for the How to Survive 200th episode gala.
Hello Wembley! To all the people listening on Radio 1 and Radio 2, and the people watching on BBC 1, BBC 2 and the BBC World Service. We are live in front of 900,000 people and millions listening around the world. Please welcome to the stage Chris and Joe!
Yeah, anyway, so that's where I reckon we'll be by episode 200, for sure.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. That sounds about right. Anyway, ready on the mic?
Yeah, let's go.
Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of How to Survive.
Hello and welcome to episode 200 of the How to Survive podcast. It's nearly 4 years since we've started, and so far it's been a dream. However, dreams can quickly turn to nightmares. Joining me as ever is Joe Sherville.
I am here as ever. That's the only 200 episodes. But the only catchphrase we have is as ever.
Yes, and
that doesn't
as
make
ever,
for good t-shirts.
And as ever, it's come out early doors. In case you missed our message as a separate download on the podcast feed, we are now on Patreon, where you can support us if you like our podcast and want more of it. Head to patreon.com/howtosurvivepod to help us out.
Yeah, nothing changes with the normal feed. We do one episode every Wednesday as we have for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But we're doing a little bit more. A few more episodes, maybe more marathon videos if we get enough money.
Yes, exactly. It's a costly business, and no cost is greater than having to watch A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child.
Yeah.
From 1989.
Yeah, the first movie we've watched with 2 title cards, incidentally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The movie is 30 years old.
Great.
So if you haven't seen it, now is your chance to duck out and save yourself from having the film spoiled for you. If you haven't listened to the How to Survive podcast before, welcome. Thank you for joining us 200 episodes in. What a treasure trove you've got to look back on.
Better late than never, really.
Yeah, exactly. And what tends to happen around here is that we recap the plot of the film, we have a little bit of a chat about what we did and didn't like, and then we talk about how we would survive if we found ourselves in A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Child. So, without further ado, for the 200th time, let's recap the plot.
His mother was a God-fearing woman. His birth was an unspeakable horror.
Please don't let him do that!
His life and death have been one incredible nightmare. But now all that is going to change because Freddy wants to become a daddy.
Want to make babies?
What's wrong with me? You're just a little pregnant.
Even if he has to adopt.
Do unborn babies dream?
When it comes to chills.
It happened while I was awake.
When it comes to screams.
The party just start.
When it comes to pure terror.
Bon appetit.
No one delivers like Freddy.
Better buckle up.
All right, Krueger. This time it's for keeps.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child.
It's a boy.
When it comes to terror, remember, Freddy knows best.
Following the events of the Dream Master, Alice has moved on with her life and now lives with her father, with whom she has repaired her relationship. She's still dating Dan, and the two of them have made new friends at school.
Can I just interject?
Mhm.
Because I had forgotten the Dream Warrior, or whatever it was called.
The Dream Master?
The Dream Master. Well,
How could you forget?
Right, so let's just be clear.
Mm-hmm.
She had some sort of dream power.
She had a dream power bestowed upon her by the previous Dream Master, and the film's climactic moment took place in a church where she recited a nursery rhyme to Freddy and forced him to look in a mirror.
Yeah.
And then he
evaporated. Yeah. So that remember
then,
the rhyme?
and then she looked in a fountain and thought she saw Freddy Krueger, and then the film ended.
What was the rhyme? It was like 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, and then it was like 9, 10. If you make him look in a mirror, he'll evaporate.
I don't know how you could possibly forget. Now I lay me down to sleep, the master of dreams, my soul I'll keep. In the reflection of my mind's eye, evil will see itself and evil will die. I don't know why that's slipping your mind. Anyway.
Imagine building your film around that.
Yes. Alice, you remember her?
Yeah.
She begins to be plagued with recurrent nightmares, but this time she finds herself in the shoes of Amanda Krueger. Over various dreams, she relives the traumatic events of Amanda's life, like neglectful guards locking her in an asylum over the weekend, leaving her at the mercy of the prisoners, which results in her giving birth to a child she claims is the product of the devil.
Yeah, let's not forget, a high point of the series was the revelation that Freddy Krueger is, and I quote, the bastard son of 100 maniacs.
Yeah, I that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Great stuff. In one of those dreams, the baby that Amanda gave birth to crawls into the church where Alice fought Freddy at the climax of the Dream Master and quickly grows into Freddy Krueger, back from the dead. Her friends dismiss her warnings of Krueger's powers, even Dan, until he falls asleep while driving. Freddy turns him into a human motorcycle hybrid and causes him to plough head-on into a truck. Dan dies as Alice looks on in horror, and when she wakes up, the doctor has some news. Alice is pregnant.
Good stuff.
Alice grieves and appears to lose some grip over her mental state. She begins to see a vision of a child named Jacob, who we quickly understand to be a dream projection of her unborn baby. Alice's friend Greta is the next to fall victim to Freddy, being force-fed in her dream until she chokes in reality. Alice requests an early ultrasound and discovers Freddy is feeding the souls of his victims to Jacob to make him more like himself, which is something that you can see on an ultrasound.
Yeah.
Her friend...
you can only see it at like the 20-week scan, though,
yeah,
traditionally.
Her friend Mark, who is a comic book fan, is next on Freddy's list, and he gets chopped to bits like paper.
Because he likes comics.
Yes. Alice's worsening mental state causes Dan's parents to try and adopt her unborn baby, but she resists their offer. Together with her last remaining friend Yvonne, Alice uncovers Amanda Krueger's story, finds her body, and Amanda joins Alice and Jacob in the dream world to fight Freddy. Jacob uses the strength Freddy has given him to tear Freddy apart, and Amanda helps finish the job, sealing him away in time. In a coda, Alice and her father dote on the baby Jacob, but some nearby children begin singing Freddy's nursery rhyme in a chilling end to A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Child. Now, before we go any further, it's a big episode, number 200. And this film in particular has coincidentally come at an auspicious time for yourself.
Yes, that's right.
Do you want to explain?
Yeah. After many months of keeping it secret, testing, scans, coming up with names, you finally announced that we have a Patreon account. No, not really. I'm having a baby. Well, I'm not. My wife is.
Congratulations.
Thank
Genuinely.
You, thanks.
Yeah, I'm made up for you.
Yes.
And
it's my dream child.
Yeah, and it's nice that the How to Survive podcast will have a sibling.
Yeah.
Your first and most important child.
The thing is, mate, like, I had to go into my wife's dream and she had to witness somebody else giving birth in order to become pregnant herself, which is the traditional method.
Yeah, thankfully you didn't fall asleep at the wheel of your motorbike.
No, exactly.
But yes, earnest congratulations.
Thank you, mate.
And I'm very pleased for you. And what an exciting time.
It is. It does. I mean, I've known for some months, but you can't say because of
Of course, yeah.
keeping it secret. But I think the first episode we'd recorded was Train to Busan, and I was like, "There's an ending to Train to Busan." I won't spoil it because it's a good film that everyone should go and watch, but it's a bit of a sad ending regarding a parent and child relationship.
Yes.
And I was like traumatized by that based on this news and couldn't sleep that night. It does, like, it changes your, like, the way you think.
Yeah.
And it sounds cliche, but and I won't go on and on about it, but basically I can no longer enjoy horror movies in the same way I used to. I mean, I'm not going to quit the podcast because Patreon, we're going to make $1 million out of it.
Yeah, sure.
I'll dry my tears with the pound notes.
Exactly,
But it messes you up, man.
Yeah, and I didn't know at the time. Yeah. Obviously, listeners didn't know, and you didn't let on.
Yeah.
But I seem to remember it was basically like you said, "Oh, it really upset me," and I was like, "Yeah, it's fine."
Yeah. So keep an eye out, I guess, for the baby. I don't know.
What did you think of The Dream Child?
Well, I think it's fine, like, as horror sequels go. But if you hadn't seen the other 4 Nightmare on Elm Street movies, it would be an absolutely bewildering experience. Like, it cursorily explains things from past movies, like Freddy is the victim of not a victim, but he's a victim in some ways. Freddy was murdered by vigilante parents, and he now seeks revenge on the people who murdered him by infecting the dreams of their children.
Yes.
Right, that is established. That's the elevator pitch of Nightmare on Elm Street. Mm-hmm. And they touch on that a couple of times. But there's stuff like Alice having dream powers, and like Nancy from the original, like, if there's a sequence of people passing on dream powers, which is glossed over. Yeah. And the dream powers themselves are, like, very, very poorly established. Yes. They're mental, and it doesn't make any sense ever. And the more you get exposed to it, the less sense it makes. Mm-hmm. It's like in this one, you just have to be like, the baby can dream. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, why not?
So he's got the baby. It's just things like that where you just have to suspend disbelief.
Yeah, well, the baby dreaming thing is, in a vague sense, based in fact. Well, because babies spend like an enormous amount of their time asleep, right?
Yes.
As I'm sure you're aware from having read whatever books that you're currently reading.
Well, I looked it up. Apparently, at 23 weeks, babies begin to experience REM sleep,
right?
Which is the state where you dream. The main problem with that is that they don't have any experience. So all they're dreaming about is like the other side of the womb.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Where does the time go? Like, you know, like they don't have any experience.
Sure. So that's an interesting idea actually. What do you dream about if you have 0 points of reference?
Right, exactly. So, like, you know, like the characters in this are like at dinner with their family, and then Freddy's hand will pop up from the roast chicken or whatever.
Yeah.
The baby's dream would be like a colour would change, and it would be Freddy, I guess.
Yeah. Well, of course, the film answers that question through the dream projection of Jacob. Did you recognise the actor?
Who plays Jacob?
Yes.
I kind of did.
It's Whit Hartford, who plays the boy in Jurassic Park.
Oh, really?
Yeah, an early role for him. And like I said, the film answers the question of what babies dream about, and they dream about being about 5 and just having a 1,000-yard stare all the time.
Yeah, I don't understand it. It would make more sense to cast a child who was a bit cuter, I think,
right?
Or at least,
well, isn't the idea that he gets a little bit more haggard every time you see him
until he's got the burnt face.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah,
because he's becoming more like Freddy.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, you pass on burns to people.
It's not even his son.
Well, yeah, that's true.
He's not his son. He's dreamt of Freddy.
Yes.
Right. He's not his son.
No.
So why is he burned?
I guess it's an attempt at a visual bit of visual storytelling. I quite enjoyed The Dream Child, I have to admit. I thought it was surprisingly pretty good, especially as we got an email the other week saying this is where the Nightmare on Elm Street films start to get bad. And maybe that's just because my expectations were low. But I thought the nightmares are much darker and nastier this time around. And they're much more effective as horror scenes, but I guess that's at the cost of the campy charm and humour that the recent films had established. I did make that note before a man gets turned into a motorbike, though. So to some extent, that does try to strike a balance. I thought there's some very good editing in it as well, and scene transitions, lots of like clever things of them going through doors and into completely different environments.
I liked the one where she was trapped in the shower and then fell into the boiler room.
Yes, exactly. Cool. Yeah, I thought that was cool. I think it did a good job of selling the sort of dream logic feeling. Did you spot Robert Englund without makeup a couple of times?
Where would we see?
He's Freddy Krueger.
I know who he is.
Right.
I know who he is.
So you see him as there's like a close up of a prisoner in the asylum scene, and it's noticeably him gurning in a sort of Freddy way, and then also he's the waiter. When he starts force feeding Greta later in the film.
Yeah, but I thought that he says
there's a moment where he doesn't have makeup.
Oh, right. They forgot to put it on.
Yeah, maybe it's probably a mistake. I thought Dan's death is pretty upsetting in a way that most of the deaths aren't in the franchise because, there's a lot of reasons, right? He's falls asleep at the wheel of his truck and crashes into a
lorry. Right?
Into a lorry. There's a good gag just as she runs over to the truck as well. I don't know if you spotted that the truck driver is wearing a fedora and jumper. Yeah. It's very reminiscent of Freddy. So you get like a half scare when he like lurches onto the screen.
It is good, yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it's always a little bit sad to see someone watch their partner die in a horrible car accident.
Yeah, especially when moments later they learn that person is the father of their child.
Yes, exactly. I thought as well there were some very cool special effects.
With the scan scene where she turns electric.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's just film, isn't it? There's no effects going on.
Yeah.
It's all in camera. No, the bit where all the food goes mouldy in the fridge.
In this stop motion.
Yeah, and then Greta like lurches out of the fridge
cool.
door.
And then the door slams shut and she disappears.
That's really cool. That was brilliant. And also the whole obviously aha Take On Me inspired comic book sequence.
First?
I think Take On Me came a few years before this. This was 1989. I think aha was mid 80s.
It's like so similar. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah, well, it's an obvious. I think it's a fairly obvious reference, isn't it? An obvious line to draw. I also thought the relationship with the father felt quite genuine and quite nice, which is a real departure for this franchise.
I did think that because you mean the father? You don't mean Freddy.
I mean Alice's father,
her own father.
Yeah.
So he lost his son, the Karate Kid, in the last movie.
Yeah.
And he's now recovered from his alcoholism.
Yes.
And it's like when she finds out she's pregnant, she says to him, "Are you disappointed?" And he's like, "No, like I'm like really looking forward to having a boy running around the house again."
Yeah.
And it's like you feel that that's an earnest thing, and it's like
and they embrace, and it's actually quite
a touching.
It's very well sold, I thought.
Yeah.
And I thought the ending was good as well. You know, just having it. You know, you have her playing with the baby, and then the camera tracks out, and you just get that hint of the rhyme. When you compare it to Freddy drags the mother through the door, or seeing reflection of Freddy in some fountain waters or whatever, it was a nicely played film, and I think actually this is probably my favourite sequel that we've covered so far. So if you're listening to this and you think I'm insane because this is a really poorly received Nightmare on Elm Street film, and I think it's not well received. It's not like notably one of the good ones or anything.
It's a rubbish film on its own, but as part of the canon.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess maybe I'm viewing it through.
If you showed this to your mum, apropos of seeing none of them, she'd be like, "What on earth is this?"
Yeah. What did you think of the credits tune?
Not as good as it's a good one. It's a good one because it's some like late 80s hip hop.
Yeah, it's like it's not Will Smith, but it almost is, if you know what I mean.
Will Smith did an earlier one, right? He did Nightmare on My Street.
Right, that is correct. Yeah.
But the best one is still no, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's just a dream. No, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. That is an all-time great.
Yeah. Can we listen to that at the end of the episode?
A nightmare one.
Yeah, to play us out for the 200th episode.
Yeah, we can stick 5 legally allowed seconds of it at the end of the podcast, I think. Do you think this film did anything different?
Sort of. It did some it's like there's some element, right, of the deaths reflecting the person's sins, if you see what I'm saying, right?
Yes. So
And-
Greta is an aspiring model.
Right, but this is where it gets cloudy. So if you think back to, say, I can't think of any good ones.
Just to finish that thought, Greta is an aspiring model who dies from being force-fed, which I
yeah.
guess is an implication that she's not eating as much as she should.
Yeah, but then she's a victim of her mother's manipulation.
Yes.
It's her mum. And then, there's things at play in this movie where it's like, because she's pregnant, there seems to be a lot of allusions to like good parenting styles and the effect your parents have on you. Which it was, is rife throughout the entire franchise because...
And you're extra sensitive to those now.
Exactly. But the whole thing is built on the sins of the father become the sins of the son, right?
Yes.
Like, if you do something, it will have an effect on your children, right? That is established in the first movie and happens pretty much every movie after that.
Yeah.
Because they've inherited the curse of Freddy because of something their parents did. But in this, it's like there's a setup scene at the beginning where they're at their graduation. Dan's the valedictorian and they're all like, his parents come over and they're very...
stuffy and...
they're like traditional conservative, slapping them on the back. You can see they're wearing signet rings or graduation rings and they're like, we need you to talk to this guy who's going to get you into a scholarship, all that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Then you get Alice's father is absent in that scene, and you're like, well, that's having an effect on her because she's anxious. You get an introduction to Greta's mother, who is shouting out, "Don't eat that lollipop because it will have an effect on your waistline," and that's it. No, you do get the comic book kid's father saying like, "Get over here! It's a photo for the brats and the father." Right?
Yeah.
And then they take the photo, and you get parents and children in the same photo. What's the swimming girl's name?
Yvonne.
Yvonne's father. I'm assuming it's him because he's black. No lines.
Yeah.
Just in that one frame. Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no, you don't get a sense of his parenting style.
No.
But like, there's a chance there for these, the effect, the neuroses that you inherit from your parents, the way they bring you up.
Yeah.
Becoming part of your psyche, and that being something that Freddy can manipulate.
Sure.
Right? That's where I thought they were going to go, but they didn't. So
No.
they just basically punish the girl who has been bullied into anorexia by her mother by force feeding her. Like, that's the thing with all of these films, all these sequels. It's like, especially the second one, which was in the mental hospital. The
That's 3. The second one was the
the allegory
mad
for
one.
being gay,
Yeah.
right? The third one was the one in the
Asylum. Yeah.
yeah. Well, no, asylum. Asylum suggests it's like a Victorian place,
Right,
like
so,
where Freddy was.
Yeah.
This is more like a
Mental hospital. Yeah.
right, exactly, a modern one. But the kids in that were like, they were drug addicts, or they were victims of abuse,
Yeah.
and it seemed like Freddy was punishing them in some way for that. Freddy's works as like a punishment for a crime. I think.
Yeah.
I think that was where he's strongest. It doesn't feel as enjoyable to watch when he's just picking apart someone who's already a victim.
Yeah.
And the heroin addict was a good example of that, where she's a recovering heroin addict and he turns into needles and injects her and kills her. And it's like, that's upsetting in a way that it wouldn't be if it was a serial killer who was punishing people for their crimes, like in 7 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, the murderer in 7 is appalling and upsetting, but it's a more entertaining watch because there's more logic to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just...
I think that's a fair point, and it's an interesting idea, like whether... Yeah, because it's not consistent, as you say, because a lot of the parent relationships aren't very developed.
Yeah.
So you get it with Greta, but you don't really get it with Yvonne or Mark, and not really with Dan either.
No.
but it's an interesting idea that they didn't really explore.
Yeah, like Greta's death it could be seen as a result of the neuroses that she's developed from her mother.
Yeah.
Dan's not neurotic at all.
Mm.
He just falls asleep at the wheel.
Yeah,
right? It's just
exactly. Yeah.
So it's a half-baked thing.
Mm. Yeah.
Put it differently, what's the moral of the story?
Well, yeah, there isn't one.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't even really come down on because obviously the film's implying a sort of, well, it's not even nature or nurture, is it? It's like your unborn baby might get like invaded in its dreams. So it's like, it's basically the whole idea revolves around what if Freddy could do it before the children were even born.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Which is, it's an original idea, but it's half-baked, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's some nice visual stuff, like we mentioned, the aha stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was quite fun to see the
that's not original though, because it's been done in aha.
It's been done in, I mean, it's original for the franchise. I like it when they branch out a bit visually, like the Escher staircase.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was good fun as well. And Freddy ripping himself out of Alice's insides as well, which was a great like Thing-esque effect. And I thought it was fun to see the tables get turned on Freddy, at least for a moment, when he gets ripped to bits by the other asylum patients.
I think, to go back to your key question, is does this film do anything different?
Yeah.
And I think no, basically. I think to a large extent, it's basically more of the same.
Yeah.
Which is very impressive set pieces, which are broken up by increasingly tedious, self-referential and contradictory mythology.
Yes, that is, I think, a fair and concise description of the franchise where it stands. Like we said earlier, it's a bit of an auspicious and obviously completely coincidental timing for this film. It's not like we planned this film to be 200 or planned for this film to be just after...
Well, we started trying when we knew 3 months into the future we'd be able to tell people about it.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think pregnancy or the fear of the unborn is a sort of appropriate or particularly scary theme to have in a horror movie?
I think yes. Appropriateness comes down to how it's managed. It's completely possible to do, I think, an appropriate horror about anything. We've seen movies about grief. We've seen movies about all kinds of different suffering and how that can be represented in a horror setting.
Yeah.
Because good horror movies play to your fears, right?
Yeah.
And the best ones do that in the form of metaphor, where let's take, just for an example, The Thing.
Yeah.
The Thing is a movie that is essentially about isolation, fear of the unknown, and if you're going to take it a step further, Red's under the bed, and not knowing who's who, and that kind of thing. And that is an amazing horror film because it takes those feelings and turns them into basically an alien invasion horror movie.
Yes.
And I think you can do the same with pregnancy. There's lots of worries and anxieties that you have around pregnancy, and they make very compelling horror movies. So, Rosemary's Baby is the absolute pinnacle. The uncertainty and the fear of doing things wrong or things going wrong, just naturally, or just getting a ton of weird advice from your well-meaning but mental neighbours. It's a very nerve-wracking time.
Yeah, it's riddled with anxieties and fears, that whole period of your life, I'm sure.
And probably the rest of your life now, because...
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You can't really get out of the anxieties of worrying for your child now, can you? I thought this evoked The Fly to a certain extent as well, which is the thing that I always think about. I mean, you're right about Rosemary's Baby, but the one that I always think about is The Fly, and the scenes where she is having nightmares of giving birth to a giant fly.
Yeah. Yep, that's something I needed to be reminded of. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Cheers.
Just a maggot coming out instead of a baby.
Yeah.
Great stuff. I think as I recall, I haven't seen it for many, many years, but Eraserhead is maybe one of the most perfect baby nightmare movies.
Yeah.
I think David Lynch made that when he was expecting his first child.
I think that's true, yes.
And if you
I think he made it over quite an extended period of time as well, but
really?
Yeah, I don't know if he wrote it in that time or something,
Yeah.
but I'm certain I've heard that there's a link before, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like him meeting his girlfriend's parents and them just like hating him, and everything just goes wrong for him, right?
Yeah.
It's been ages since I've seen it. I think I want to watch it again in the current climate, and see if it makes me feel anything.
Do you think it will be like a, like those experiences where you go watch Jaws while you're floating on a rubber ring?
Yeah.
Or, like a secret cinema thing?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Where it's like an experiential cinema thing.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Eraserhead while you're expecting a baby.
Well, maybe I'll do, we've got Patreon now. Maybe as a little bonus for the Patreon subscribers, I'm going to do a very mini episode of me discussing Eraserhead and my anxieties of parenthood after I watch it.
There you go. Look forward to that. Well, Joe, it's been 200 episodes.
Yeah.
Of the How to Survive podcast. Have you had fun?
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe.
how much do you really know about the How to Survive podcast?
Oh, mate.
Let's find out with my How to Survive 200th episode quiz.
Are you going to do an 8-bit version of the How to Survive theme?
No.
What are you going to do?
So what's going to happen, Joe, is there are 8 questions. They are all related to the podcast.
Great.
So it's testing your memory. And you admitted the other day that you sometimes listen back to old episodes. So maybe these won't be as rusty memories as you might think.
I'm always torn because I kind of hate listening back because I think like I'm a simpering nerdo.
Sycophant.
Yeah. And then sometimes I'm like...
Sometimes you're like, maybe I'll be quizzed on this one day.
Exactly, yeah. Need to revise.
Question 1. What was your first ever survival idea?
So that would have been Friday the 13th.
Yes.
The first ever Friday the 13th. Oh, mate. No, I don't remember.
So it was back in the days when we did The First to Die,
Right.
The Survivor, and How Would You Survive? That was how we broke up the survival ideas.
Okay.
So it was For the First Person, which I don't know if you remember, comes before the credits of Friday the 13th.
Right.
Which is 2 people in a loft.
Yeah, that's right.
Which we discussed.
Lock the door?
No, it was basically... Obviously, by the end of the film, you realise that the person confronting them is Mrs. Voorhees.
Yeah.
So your advice was punch Mrs. Voorhees in the face.
Or because she's an old lady.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you would have survived, you reckoned. Question 2. Which film, directed by Steve Beck, was the first to receive the dubious honour of us forgetting to write a plot recap?
Steve Beck. I think it must be one of the sequels. You're making a funny face at me.
It's got a number in it.
13 and Ghosts.
Correct.
Yeah.
Episode 84.
Nice.
I forgot to write the recap of the film.
Not the last time.
Yes. Question 3. Which podcast very nearly didn't go out due to a critical failure of an SD card, resulting in a frantic, ultimately successful data recovery mission?
Oh, mate, was it The Martian?
Incorrect. It was 28 days later.
Wow.
Episode 16.
Nice.
If you can believe it. And that was not a good day.
No, that's when we recorded onto SD cards. For a little bit of technical information, we used to use radio mics. And now we use just talking.
Any old mics that I have,
Yes.
basically.
But they were going into a computer at least.
Yes. So if my laptop fails, we're in
Deep shit.
yeah, considerable trouble. Question 4. So you've only got 1 so far. So just to keep you abreast. Question 4. Which film was the first one for which we gave a parental guidance warning before recapping the plot?
So I'm just going to do some thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Cannibal Holocaust comes to mind. I'm thinking it must have been Hills of Eyes because there's sexual violence, maybe.
I'll give you a clue. It was far enough into the podcast that people had started emailing saying things like, I listened to it in the car with my children.
Yeah, right. I listened to this horror movie podcast where you talk about violent horror movies with my babies in the car.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Mate, Crank, maybe?
It was The Witch.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Episode 34.
Yeah.
Obviously, the recap. Well, if you've seen The Witch,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Question 5. Name each of the podcasts on which your good lady wife has appeared.
She was on Dawn of the Dead. No, not Dawn of the Dead. What? She was on War of the Worlds.
Yes. Episode 68.
She was on My Bloody Valentine.
Correct.
She was also on Belko Experiment.
Correct. Those are the 3 that I've got down.
Nice.
Yes.
I don't think any others.
No, I think you read stuff out from her on other ones, but those are the ones where she appeared by voice.
Yep.
Yes. Question number 6. Since November the 1st, 2017, which as a bit of inside baseball is when the podcast syndication platform we use reset the statistics for our downloads. Since November the 1st, 2017, what is our least downloaded original episode, not including minisodes?
So there's plenty of movies which I think are great and don't seem to be very popular.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking next week's movie, Midsummer, is going to be fairly low.
Okay.
That's just, ask me at 400 if that's the case. The Survivor list is going to be exceptionally low, I'd assume. Goodnight Mummy, I would think would be low. I think one of those two probably. Probably the Survivor list.
Incorrect. It was How to Survive Julia's Eyes.
Really? It's
Yes.
a very good film.
Yes, episode 43. So if you haven't seen Julia's Eyes, you should go watch it and then download that episode. And maybe it won't be the least downloaded one.
Yeah. So more people download the Survivor list than download
Apparently
the
so.
Julia's Eyes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Since November the 1st, 2017, what is our most downloaded episode?
War of the Worlds? No, Titanic.
Incorrect.
Oh.
It was Hereditary.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Episode 148. Hereditary is our most downloaded episode since the stats reset.
That's crazy.
Final question, and this is a deep cut for anyone who's been listening for a while. Who is, to date, the sole occupant of the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame?
Oh, I know the movie. I can't remember the character's name though. It was the girl in The Invitation who was like raised to be in a survivalist.
So you're thinking of You're Next.
Yes, sorry, You're Next. Yeah.
But that's incorrect. So
Don't tell me. Let me think.
Okay. She was in the top 5.
Yeah. Mark Watney was in there from The Martian.
There are
Jason Bourne in Space.
Well, okay, so you've said the name, the secret answer. Okay. So here's a bit of context for people who haven't been listening for long. We had an idea that for our 50th episode, we would do a thing where people could write in and say who they think was the best survivor, the best character who survived the first 50 films that we covered. No one emailed in.
No.
Not a soul. So we abandoned the idea.
Yeah.
But we still put out the episode because we've been trading it for God knows how many weeks.
Yeah.
So the correct answer...
Rose DeWitt?
No. It was Ellen Ripley.
Nah, okay, yeah.
Cinematic legend Ellen Ripley. And I would have also accepted Jason Bourne because we said that, like the Bible on Desert Island Discs, Jason Bourne would already be there, having broken in through a window.
That's good.
So I think
Jack and Rose must have been in there as well.
I think Rose was in there. Jack obviously does not survive.
Famously. Yeah.
So I think you only got 1 or 2 there, Joe. So a bit of revision is in order, I think.
Well, I've got 200 episodes to listen back on. So.
Yeah, so here's to 200 more. And of course, for the 200th time, how would you survive?
So this tip is for all of humanity, I suppose.
Okay.
There must be a better way to count prisoners and store them.
Yeah. Okay. So the scene that you're referencing is the nightmare version of the asylum that Freddy's apparent father was in.
Well, father, let's not forget that he's the bastard son of 100 maniacs.
Of course, yeah, because that is how it works. In the dream where we see Amanda Kruger stuck in the asylum. Yeah.
So let's say, is it an asylum, which is somewhere that the mentally ill are taken to, for refuge from the cruel world outside and to help them rehabilitate, or is it like an Arkham style prison.
Well, Arkham Asylum is what that's called, isn't it? But I think, like you said earlier, it's a Victorian asylum, which is basically we don't know what to do with these people, so we'll just store them.
But the problem with that is they don't have cells or rooms. They're just kept in like a hall.
Right. So there's the nub. Right in the scene that we see, two guards are counting the inmates
who are just like walking in circles.
Yeah, they're all just milling about in this big open area.
It's like, where's Wally?
Yeah, and the guards say, oh, it's 76, 77. Oh, that's close enough to 100. Let's go. And they go, right? Now, what they're not doing is counting the nuns out.
Yeah.
Which is,
that would help, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Don't count the inmates, count the nuns. But yeah, so that is not an efficient way of counting or storing inmates. You are correct.
If you got them to stand still or like line up, more easily done.
But they're like horror movie mad, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they're all just like chattering and walking in circles and things like that, aren't they?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that if they're all doing that, counting them is surely a very inefficient way of registering who's there.
Yeah. Take names.
Yeah.
Like I mean, these are dangerous people. I'm taking it. Like they're locked up. It looks like they're not locked up for no to rehabilitate. It looks like they're locked up because they are liable to become the fathers of the bastard children from 99 Maniacs. Whatever.
Yeah. They are locked away from society.
Yeah. And those guards are like, let's go home for the weekend.
Yes.
Well, who's guarding them? They're just going to lock them up, leave them there.
Yeah, that's how it works, mate.
What is this?
Look, what you're suggesting that the writers of A Nightmare on Elm Street 5: The Dream Child have no idea how the mental rehabilitation works. I don't believe that for a second. I think this is based on real life
documentary evidence.
Exactly.
But don't get me wrong. Of course, there are places in the world where both prisoners or alternatively mentally handicapped people are treated awfully by people who are in charge of them.
Yes.
Like, that is clear.
Absolutely.
But this is
some distance beyond that.
This is a Catholic refuge with nuns.
There's nuns, yeah. What are the nuns saying? Like, are they just going, guys, you should really...
Why is she down there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Milling about.
Yeah. It's not, like, just the time tax of having to, like, fight your way through...
Yeah.
Like, why aren't they guarding her?
Yeah.
They're just like guarding a door that they can lock.
Yeah, yeah. And no one seems bothered. No one's trying to escape. But then I love that there's that horror movie sort of thing of like, as soon as a door locks, they all have the exact same idea.
Yeah.
And just turn, like, it's like the birds.
Turn and look at her.
Yeah.
Yes. My first survival idea very much ties into this, which is just have a better prison system and better conditions, which would result in less chance of reoffending. When it's more focused on rehabilitation, the rate of reoffenders goes markedly down, right?
Are you there to punish them or help them?
Exactly, right? And the asylum is so obviously underfunded and understaffed, and the staff who are there are disinterested jobs worths. So, I mean, it needs a ground up rebuild, doesn't it?
Mate, if the inspector came in, he'd have a fucking field day, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, it's probably all corrupt, mate, isn't it? It's all corrupt in the system.
Lots of money greasing hands in the
world of
Springwood
Catholic
asylum.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Which would obviously just result in, fewer nuns being raped and that sort of thing, I guess.
Was the baby in real life born as like the devil spawn?
Well, I don't know.
Is that dream version?
It's like I assume the baby didn't crawl into a church and then like grow into a 6-foot man as well.
Did Freddy lock her up in, like, brick her up in the building essentially in real life? Because her body is there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. It doesn't give you an answer on that, does
it's
it?
almost like her spirit needs to be laid to rest.
Yeah, it's like a classic.
Freed.
She's like an Onryo,
exactly, like
Japanese
Onryo,
ghost.
If more on that, listen to episodes on G1 The Grudge or Dark Water.
Yes. Any more ideas?
Well, as we've said many times, my wife's pregnant, and the one thing she's been doing a lot of lately is sleeping.
Right.
So, I mean, I didn't notice that Alice had any of the symptoms that I'd associate with the first trimester of pregnancy.
Okay.
No nausea, no fatigue, no cravings, it seemed.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, she seemed to be living her life exactly the same as before.
Yeah.
And not sleeping, even though that is advised that you take plenty of rest.
She's caught between two bus stops in that regard, isn't she?
Yeah. Well, the first bus stop being
going to sleep and resting as advised, and the second bus stop being murdered in her sleep.
Yeah. Well, Freddy can't kill her, can he? Because he needs Jacob to be.
Yeah.
This is those two bus stops are quite far apart.
Well, these are some of the things that you have to think about now that you're going to become a father.
Yeah. So my wife says I'm going to go for a nap. I'm like, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Can we just be sure for that you're not going to that child in your stomach, because that's where it is.
Yeah.
Isn't going to have its brain infected by a.
But then her sleeping isn't what allows Freddy access. Is
the baby sleeping?
Yeah,
the fetus sleeping,
which is happening a lot of the time. So keep the baby awake.
Yeah. How do you do that? For the listening audience, Chris just pretended to jiggle a pregnant belly up and down. His own.
Yeah. Which is, I think, the medically advised way of keeping your baby awake, right?
Yep.
If you do that during the pregnancy, then when they're born, they'll sleep through that problematic first period where they're supposed to be up all the time.
Because they'll be so tired.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Got to catch up.
Yeah, catching up on 9 months of sleep.
Yeah, 100% of their lives sleep.
Yeah. So there you go, mate. That's my ideas. Do you have any more?
Yeah, I've got one more, which is a bit of Minnie Mouse or whatever, but why don't they just...
It's not like you. Why make a change?
Why doesn't she just recite the nursery rhyme that kills Freddy instantly like last time?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which, lest we forget, is now I lay me down to sleep, the master of dreams, my soul I'll keep, in the reflection of my mind's eye, evil will see itself and evil will die. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd forgotten.
First time she's in the dream and sees Freddy, just no, right? And then he just goes, oh no. And then, because she's supposed to have like dream controlling powers as well, isn't she? She's one of the dream masters now. Just hold up a mirror to him, job done. Seems to get rid of him for a protracted period of time.
And do it again when he comes back.
Yeah. It's what, one size fits all solution. Surely. We don't even see her try it.
Yeah. That was like in many ways, the nuclear bomb and then the last one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the war ending weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
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 So why didn't she do that?
Yeah, mate. But I'd forgotten the rhyme. I think.
So you think Alice has forgotten?
Yeah, she just forgot. It's so forgettable.
Right. Oh, that is. I mean, it isn't good, is it?
No.
But lest we forget, using that phrase again.
Yeah.
She didn't remember the rhyme herself until she was about 5 seconds away from using it the first time.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just that it's like divine inspiration.
Maybe she dreamt it.
Maybe she did. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we've dreamt the whole damn thing.
Oh, mate. So.
Yes.
Normally here, at this point, we'd be having a bit of correspondence, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
But you've got to pay for that now, so...
Well, here's the thing, okay? We would always do emails and stuff at the end of the show, and I would always get the suspicion that people were getting to the end of the survival chat, going, blah, 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 skip to the end of the podcast, done, right? However, we would like to encourage people to email. The tricky thing with our podcast, the way it was set up until now, is that you had to miraculously have seen every film that we were talking about each week.
And also sit through 45 to 50 minutes of absolutely interminable garbage.
Yes,
to
exactly.
Get to your letter.
No more. Now you can skip straight to the letter-related garbage with our How to Survive Patreon-exclusive mailbag episodes, which is a bit like How to Survive After Dark, Joe. And, there's famous episodes like War of the Worlds where basically we have a bit to drink and we just end up rambling on about mad stuff for a while after the record of the podcast. And that's basically, I think, what the mailbag episodes are going to turn out to be.
Because people have often said, like, they want to hear us talk about other, like, obviously, this discussion today has been absolutely strictly focused on Nightmare on Elm Street 5 Dream Child, and you can't do it any other way.
Yeah.
But, I've got films I want to talk about. I might have watched Creed 2. Maybe you want to know my feelings on that.
Yeah.
Then tune into the mailbag episode. Maybe I'll bring it up.
Yeah, and also we want to help you survive just the day-to-day things life throws at you.
Like in Johnson's Britain.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're going through hell at work or you're stuck in a rut with your wedding plans, whatever's going on in your life, we want to help you. We want to tell you how to survive.
We helped Australian Ben find love.
Yeah, and that's basically, that was the proof of concept for this whole enterprise.
Admittedly, he found love on his own.
These are details.
Yeah.
Absolute details.
Ironed
right?
out later.
So just to sum up, Joe, you can now support How to Survive on Patreon. And any support you give us would mean an awful lot because we rent all the films that we watch. We don't download them illegally or, use some sort of cheeky way of viewing them. We pay for them because we think that's important.
Yes.
You travel at least an hour and a half to get here to record every time. That costs money. It costs money to host the podcast. It costs money to maintain lots of things to do with the podcast. So any money that you can give us would be really appreciated and it would help the podcast carry on.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. This isn't us begging for money.
No,
we
absolutely
quit
not.
Or anything.
And we're not gonna stop the podcast, but we've had people write in and say, if you had a Patreon, we'd support you.
Yeah.
And
so we'll be emailing those people back saying,
time has come.
Yeah.
But also it took us a while to sort of iron out exactly what we wanted to do with a Patreon, what we wanted to offer. And if you head to patreon.com/howtosurvivepod, then you'll see what we have there. And just to reiterate, any supporters in the Camp Counselors tier will get access to our weekly Patreon exclusive mailbag episodes where you can shape the content with whatever you want us to talk about.
Yes. And any donations are more than welcome. But they'll unlock the Hostel episode.
Yes.
We didn't want to do Hostel, but we figured it would be a good way of giving something back to people.
Yes.
People wanted us to do it for some God knows. I mean, I've watched it now. I still don't understand why people would want to watch it.
No.
But we've done it. So if you want to listen to it, go pay for it.
Yes, exactly. So if you want to get in touch, email howtosurviveshow@gmail.com, tweet us at howtosurvivepod, and you can, of course, comment on our Patreon posts and we will see it. And either we'll reply or we'll use your emails as part of our mailbag shows.
I think, to be fair, what we've talked about a lot in the past is having a lack of a community base.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who I think would want to talk to us in a more direct way, and they can through Patreon.
Yeah. And you don't have to have seen, a rubbish film or skip to the end of a podcast to do it now.
No.
So, if you're a How to Survive super fan, thank you very much for your support, and we'll see you on the Patreon. Next week, Joe, it's the feel-good film of the summer.
Yes.
Ari Aster's 2019 follow-up to Hereditary, Midsommar.
Midsommar.
Yes. So look forward to that for episode 201. And until then,
go on Patreon. Patreon.com/howtosurvivepod.
Bye.